This episode of my now named Jojo's Kitchen concerns the French omelette. This was a meal that my parents used to cook up when we'd had a big lunch or everyone's feeling a bit knackered. And it was actually my father who used to cook them, and the recipe comes from Mastering the Art of French Cookery, which was sort of the seminal cooking work of the 1970s. It's actually older than that. It's written by Julia Child, amongst others, and it's basically a manual to French cooking written by an American woman who in the post-war years went to France and studied at the Cordon Bleu school. She is quite famous in America. She had a cooking show on television way before, people were putting them on the internet. And the French omelette is one of her recipes, which comes with diagrams, which is how we all learned to make it in my family. The nice thing about it is that it's 10 o'clock at night, I'm about to go into work. I can whip up the omelette, including preparation time, in less than 15 minutes. You can put any fillings into it that you like, pretty much, as long as you don't put too much into it, because you don't want to cook it too much, so nothing that requires too much heating through. You put ingredients that don't need to be cooked inside the omelette. The inside of the omelette does not cook, so you want to have, if you're going to put things like mushrooms, one of my variations is mushrooms, garlic and bacon, you have to cook that up first, because it will not cook inside the omelette unless you want something that's got the texture of a bikies jacket. So the first thing you want to do is prepare your ingredients. The housemate brought home the ham of doom, and it's sitting in the fridge, so I figured that I would avail myself of a few slices of the ham of doom and chop that up roughly. Chopped up some of those mini Roma tomatoes, which I'm really into at the moment. They also go on the Greek salad, and a bit of tasty cheese. As an omelette cooks so quickly, you must have everything ready before you start, otherwise it will overcook while you're panicking and looking for ingredients. You need at a minimum 2 eggs. You crack them into a bowl, you fish out the bits of shell if you're me, and if you like pepper, grind in a little pepper at this stage. Don't use salt, because it will just toughen the eggs and make the omelette once again leathery. Beat them up with a fork. You don't want them beaten as if you were using an egg beater. You just want them so that the eggs and the yolks are well combined and the pepper's all mixed through. Once you've done that, you put some butter into the pan. Now, I use butter. I wouldn't use oil, because for me it doesn't seem to taste right for an omelette. It's all about the way the flavours go together, and for me an omelette is about being buttery on the outside. When you put the butter in the pan, I heat it over a reasonably high heat until it starts to foam and it gets that sort of white surface on it where the bubbles come up to the top, and the solids of the butter actually go white and foamy on the top. If the butter gets to be brown, it's burned, and although that's a flavour for another recipe, it's not a flavour for an omelette. Just simply toss it out, wipe out the pan with some paper towel and try again. You don't want burnt butter in your omelette, not very appetising. Once you've got the pan to the right heat and the butter is foamy, you pour the beaten eggs into the pan, and as you can see, they sit there and look all bubbly and gorgeous. The lovely texture of the outside of a French omelette is caused by the dragging of the cooked omelette into the middle of the pan, and then tilting the pan so that the uncooked egg on top rolls in underneath where you've dragged it in. So you take the fork and you carefully drag the edges of the omelette in. Now, another good thing about this is that it does tend to stop it sticking to the bottom of the pan, and although that pan looks like a non-stick pan, I can tell you that after many years of use, the only reason it's non-stick is because it's now very well seasoned. So as you can see, the omelette starts to get wrinkly in the middle, and you let the egg fill up the edges. You don't want any holes, because it just makes it hard to get the omelette out at the end, so do try and pour the egg all around. You get to a point where there's not really enough liquid egg on top to pour into the gaps, and you'll know at that point, when you tilt it and nothing much is happening, that it's time to put the topping on. I've put the cheese on first. As I may have mentioned before, the inside of the omelette doesn't really cook very much, so if you want your cheese melted, you really need to have it exposed to the warmth the longest. So I put the cheese in first so that it gets a chance to melt. I let it start a bit, and then I chuck in the other ingredients, which in this case were the ham and the chopped up tomatoes. Once they're in there, you just let it sit. You watch the texture of the omelette underneath quite carefully, because although you want it if you're like me, I don't really like runny eggs. Some people like the inside of their omelettes really runny. I don't. I like my egg so that it's just cooked all the way through. So you just watch it and you check, and once you can see that the runniness is just about all gone, it's time to take it out of the pan. The glossiness of the uncooked egg is sort of disappearing and it looks like it's ready to go. Of course, then the last step is tip it out onto a nice big white plate. You tilt the pan so that the omelette starts to slide out of the pan, and then you just carefully, as it's halfway out and the edge of the omelette is still on the lip of the pan, flip it. You flick it back towards the other side of it so that it folds over on itself. It sounds complicated. It really isn't. It's one of the easiest manoeuvres, and I will have to make another omelette again and actually video it. The reason this one isn't videoed is because I didn't have enough battery to video, but I did have enough battery to take still photos, and I've been so well organised and I was so pleased with myself that I decided that I was going to do one anyway and see what it looks like with stills instead of with video. That's me crapping on about my omelette. It was extremely tasty. I forbore from taking a picture of the empty plate. So that's the French omelette, and I hope you enjoyed that.